The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar number 3, how to get free professional development and management training provided by SHPE DFW. My name is Israel Mejia and I'm the Director of Professional Development for SHPE DFW. This time we have a stellar presenter, Fernando Ceballos. Thank you, Fernando, for coming to the webinar.
Thank you for having me.
So this time we have Fernando, which was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. He's the first generation college graduate. Fernando graduated from Texas A&M University in 2013. As you may know, Fernando, he's heavily engaged with the SHPE familia. He's been with SHPE since 2014, and he's now the VP for Region 5. And he's been also heavily involved with our own chapter in DFW. Without any more things to say about Fernando, we have a very long bio about him. I'm going to leave the microphones open for him to present this webinar. If you have any questions, please send these questions via chat, or if you want to request your own question, you can raise the hand that is on your control panel, and we're going to be opening the microphones after the presentation for Q&A session. Fernando, thank you so much for presenting this webinar. The microphone is yours.
Thank you so much, Israel, for that introduction. I also want to thank everybody on the call and the webinar for taking the time to come in and listen to some of this advice that I have to share with you guys. Again, like Israel mentioned, today we're going to talk about how to receive free professional development and management training through volunteer work. Especially on this particular topic, we're going to be discussing how you can leverage your involvement with the organization, SHPE, and any other nonprofits for that matter, and how you can get the training. Now, I'm going to spend 20 or so minutes, 20 to 25 minutes, going through the content that I prepared for today's presentation, and then, like Israel said, we'll open it up for Q&A. So finding value in helping others. You know, one of the things that SHPE prides itself on is giving back to the community. So in doing so, in thinking about oneself, you have to be able to develop and find those opportunities for the win-win scenarios. Now, what I mean by that is finding ways to help others and at the same time help yourself. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit more in detail as to what that looks like in practice, but keep that in mind, keep that theme in mind as we continue to go through this presentation. Now, for professional development, I think a lot of people have different definitions as to what exactly it means. Some people tend to focus on professional development being more technical oriented because, again, they look at the professional development and they stick on the word professional, and they think that that's only for their professional career. But professional development can really be a broad range of topics. Now, in this definition here, the term professional development may be used in reference to a wide variety of specialized training, formal education, or advanced professional learning intended to help improve professional knowledge, competence, skill, and effectiveness. The thing that I want to highlight the most here is specialized training. A lot of times we come across resources, whether that be online or through work or through your involvement through organizations, where you get the education, you get the books, and you get the resources, but unless you're really practicing it and training yourself to put that knowledge in practice, it's very difficult for you to apply that and for it to be ingrained in your brain and become a habit. So what I really want to focus on is how to leverage these resources and get them as and focus for you to be able to train those resources. Now, in management, you know, these are some of the critical management skills that top managers focus on. We're going to be talking a little more about how these things look in practice: strategic thinking, team management, emotional intelligence, business development, public speaking, and motivational. And again, I'll talk a little more about what those mean. Now, strategic thinking. I want to be able to discuss, you know, what that looks like for you to be able to operate your own local chapter or be a part of a team environment in your local chapter for your organization, such as SHPE. Now, And applying this to the corporate world, a lot of times you'll take on a role as a manager and you'll be thrown into the wolves and asked to produce, certain initiatives, certain programs. And a lot of times without the training, without the official training in the corporate environment, it's difficult for you to understand, what that looks like. A lot of times there isn't a lot of go-bys, and there isn't a formalized training process in the corporate America that will teach you how to develop those skills. So one way to get those skills for you to be able to apply them in your corporate job is by doing these four top skills, if you will: developing chapter goals, key chapter partnerships, developing sustainable programs, and chapter initiatives. Now, a lot of times people join an organization such as SHPE, and they take on a role for, let's pretend, or let's take taking the role of president, for example. A lot of times with, you look at the role and the chapter has their bylaws, their minimum responsibilities, and certain, key metrics for you to perform during your term. But unless you take full ownership of that position, it's very difficult for you to learn the skills necessary to be an effective president of a chapter. In developing chapter goals, you have to be able to establish SMART goals, not just for your position, for also for your chapter. And depending on the area that you are in the country or in the region, you may be taking over a small chapter, a medium chapter, a large chapter, and sometimes those goals can be catered to getting your chapter size larger, into the larger tier. And in being able to do so, you have to be able to develop key partnerships. And by that, I don't just mean with other local SHPE chapters, but developing partnerships with the community, with state officials, with corporate partnerships. They may come in form of sponsors. And again, in able to develop those partnerships, you can leverage those skills that you learn in practice in your role in SHPE and apply them to corporate America. And again, understanding how to start new initiatives and create sustainable programs. The last thing you want to do in having your term as president for a chapter is create programs that aren't going to be consistent. A lot of times, people who come into a officer role for this organization in particular will look at the organization as a startup. What are some of the programs that I can start this year that can be sustainable for the coming years to where people can pick them up and move along and continue to grow the chapters. And in doing so, in growing the chapters, you tend to be able to work with a team, right? A team, in this case, we call them officers in SHPE. But in managing a team, it's not just as simple as telling people what to do or what they need to do. You need to be able to keep everybody focused and understanding and helping them understand the bigger picture as to what direction the chapter needs to take. Now, this may come in forms of organizing the team, providing direction, delegating tasks, and reaching milestones or adjusting. And I think the adjusting part or the pivoting part is the most important. Many times chapters will start in a trajectory to reach certain milestones, but whatever the case may be, certain people may leave the organization or new things may be thrown your way. You have to be able to pivot and adjust. And this isn't just something that you see in the nonprofit world. This happens a lot in corporate America, whether that be a client throwing a wrench at you, or if you're on the civil engineering side, for example, if the city comes up with a new initiative or a new program and you're asked to deliver a certain product or your project earlier, again, you have to be able to pivot and understand how to work with team members that may have different personalities. And going off of the personalities, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, can come down to dealing with personalities, focusing on people's strengths, relationship management, and effective communication. You'll sometimes hear emotional intelligence to be also called as EQ. And I think in a management role, there's times where EQ is more important than your IQ. And by that I mean is understanding how to work with people effectively is more important than knowing the technical side of being a manager. When we talk about professional development, people tend to focus on, well, I need to focus on my technical skills. but those are all things that you can learn on the job. Working on the emotional intelligence, the EQ side, those are things that you have to practice. You have to know how to create relationships with people. You have to know how to find common grounds with others, but understand how to leverage their strengths to the advantage of the overall team. And again, these are things that you have to train day in and day out. These aren't just things that you can just pick up on a book and know how to apply them and move on and be an effective leader. You have to practice them. And what better way to practice them than by being surrounded with other volunteers who are passionate or have similar backgrounds and have similar ambitions to want to help the community, because again, it's easier to work with individuals who share common goals. Business development. Now, there's a long list of what this term really means, but these are the 4 things that I took from the business development component: sponsorship packets, marketing initiatives, membership growth / retention, networking, and negotiations. And again, these are all things that I'm trying to explain how you can grow your skills to be a manager and gain professional development through your involvement with an organization or a nonprofit. Now, sponsorship packets. There's times where vice presidents of external affairs will take on a role of corporate relationships or external affairs. Now, a sponsorship packet is meant for a chapter to find corporate sponsors or community sponsors that would help them not just execute events, but maybe fundraise, find different ways of bringing in money for scholarships, or even creating grants for some of your members. But the thing is, this is a great opportunity for you to take these skills to corporate America. And by that, I mean, if you can find a way to sell a sponsorship packet to a company through your involvement with the organization, this is a skill that you would apply in the sense of, you've taken a role of corporate America and you're looking at business development, how to bring in new clients, how to potentially bring new employees, how to keep the employees happy. Now, in the sponsorship component, you're learning how to sell the services of your company. And what better way to practice than by doing it for an organization? Now, let's pretend that you make a mistake or you really don't know how to go about it. You can always fix that and pivot in the nonprofit world, because you're trying to sell an organization's potential partnership with a corporate member. But if you were to apply that same scenario into corporate America, it's a lot more difficult to say, let me go ahead and reset what I just told you and let me try to repitch my company. Those type of opportunities are very, you really can't put yourself in that scenario, because you may be jeopardizing potential clients for your company. And again, these are things that you want to be able to know how to deal with once you're in that scenario. And I also want to talk about, networking and negotiations. Working with organizations, you have to do a lot of networking. You'll go to social events, you'll go to workshops, you'll go to webinars such as these, and these are all key opportunities for you to, rub elbows with your peers, with potential coworkers, potential bosses. The larger you build your network, the more exposure you get, and the better ability you have to bring that same network into your day job and potentially, again, grow your clientele and grow your organization and grow your company. And public speaking, the process of performing a speech to a live audience for the purpose of informing, persuading, or entertaining. Now, there's other organizations such as Toastmasters or other community organizations that focus specifically on just public speaking, on helping you get out of your comfort zone, how to develop positive habits, how to gain more self-esteem, and again, to be able to deliver a better speech. But this is one of those key examples of what a win-win situation looks like. And this can be in the form of a STEM outreach, hosting a meeting, or hosting a workshop, and then STEM advocacy. Now, going back to the STEM outreach component, this is the win-win situation, because if you're someone like myself, take me 2.5, 3 years ago, I had a difficult time with public speaking. I felt comfortable to a certain extent, but I still needed to get that practice in, and I really had a hard time delivering my message effectively. So what I did was I started by practicing with elementary kids. All I did was I would go in there, talk about STEM, talk about how I got to college, what it is that I do as a civil engineer, and these were all elementary kids wanting to learn more about STEM. So what I talked about were those things, but I also threw in, talking about Iron Man or the Hulk, and trying to bring in those fun, interesting activities that kids can do, but also getting the opportunity to just practice my public speaking. As the more comfortable I felt with elementary kids, I moved on to middle school, high school, undergraduates, and now I'm at a point where I still need to practice, and I still don't feel extremely comfortable giving presentations. But through the platform of SHIP, I get to do these type of opportunities. I get to host webinars. I get to speak to politicians, city officials, just being able to talk about the STEM advocacy and the importance of encouraging others to pursue STEM careers. And these are all different ways for you to work on your public speaking, because again, this is another one of those skills that if you don't practice, it's very hard to develop just by reading books or watching videos. And motivational, this is the last component that I wanted to talk about. In keeping people focused, encouraging members, team around, leadership. These are skills that oftentimes you won't be able to find in corporate America. The top most effective managers are also leaders. And typically leaders have a high component of motivation in them, but they're also able to motivate others. They're able to lead through in the front. They're able to encourage others to continue to work for continuous personal and professional growth. But one of the things is for you to be able to be motivational and encourage others by being a leader in a nonprofit world that's mainly driven by volunteers is a really good indicator showing you if you are an effective leader. Oftentimes, most of these volunteers aren't getting paid, aren't getting any monetary incentives, or aren't gaining any certifications. So it's difficult sometimes to keep these individuals motivated on continuing to volunteer and give back to the community. But if you're able to effectively keep those people engaged, let them see the bigger picture, let them see the importance of giving back to the community while also gaining, exposure for themselves. These are, key indicators that you are gaining that skill of being motivating for a team management, for a project manager role. And kind of bring it all together and connecting the dots. I think all of this is mainly just perspective. Oftentimes it's very easy to see your involvement through an organization or a nonprofit and just see it as giving back to the community or just volunteering. But if you're able to look at everything you're doing through your role as either president, vice president, et cetera, or just a member or a volunteer, if you're able to connect the dots and see how the things you're doing by helping others and letting them get better understanding of what you do in your career, those are skills that you can bring to corporate America, to your professional career, that oftentimes you won't get that training in. And again, and I continue to mention corporate America, but it's difficult sometimes because companies oftentimes don't focus on developing these skills for their managers. It's more aimed towards if an individual has shown their technical expertise, has shown that they can deliver products and that they can move the project forward, they oftentimes fall into a project manager role. But the rest of the skills, the soft skills, the team management skills, those are often left for you to develop yourself on your own personal time, or if you're willing to make the investment on going to other organizations or other companies to help you develop those skills. So again, this is all about perspective and seeing how you helping others can really help you grow. And that's kind of the selfish component there, to where you understand that you're not just throwing your time away by helping others. It really is giving you something in return, whether you see it or not. It's more of an investment, for a long-term investment. And that's kind of all I had. I'm gonna go ahead and let Israel open up the mics for Q&A. And again, I want to thank you guys for your time and uh, for your attention and listening to me give this presentation.
Thank you, Fernando. I think you touch very important points in terms of how sometimes soft skills are more important than the technical skills. And I think this is a topic that is open for discussion recently by many engineers, which is one of the main fields that we are interested here. All right, so if you guys have any question, you can raise your hand directly on your control panel so we can open the microphone, or you can send your question via the question panel that you have as well in your control panel. All right, Fernando. So we have the first question. Let me open the mic for Miguel Angeles. Please, can you tell us your name and where you're calling from, please? Hi, Miguel.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Van Mejia. Hello, Fernando. My name is Miguel. I'm the academic chair for SHPE at UT Arlington. First, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and giving this webinar. I think it'll benefit a lot of students. My question was, I've seen there's a lot of problem, including myself. But I've noticed that sometimes when we talk to professionals, sometimes we stoop ourselves really low, and sometimes we get discouraged to talk to them because maybe we think that they're better than us, or they have more skills, and we won't be on their level. So how do you break that barrier? How can you talk to an like a professional and talk to them in a way where it feels like you guys are really good friends?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Miguel. I think I kind of go back to things that you have to train, and I think you have to be able to put yourself in these situations where you're going to be able to be successful. The best way to be able to get more comfortable talking to professionals if you're a student is by attending networking events, is by attending, we're fortunate enough to be part of an organization that has student chapters and professional chapters. If you're a student in an organization, and if you're a student and you're part of a SHPE chapter, my recommendation is attend professional chapter events. This is a more close-knit, friendly environment where you're able to attend an event and just be able to network with other professionals. And the more and more you get comfortable talking to professionals, you're going to be able to have those conversations with them in, for example, a career fair setting. The last thing you want to do is be shy, and then the first time you get exposed to talking to professionals is at a career fair, because you don't have those moments that you can recall and go back to and say, hey, I've talked to professionals before and it wasn't so bad. These are the things that I talked to them about. And again, I think the best way to break that ice is, one, practice and put yourself in situations to where you can get that exposure, and two is remind yourself that they were students at one point too, and they were nervous themselves. So if you're really having a hard time, having a discussion with a professional, the best way to do it is just ask them the question. You want to make them talk, right? So the best way to do that is just ask them the questions like, hey, when you were a student, how did you get through this? I'm kind of nervous right now, and I'm wondering, what did you do to get better at these conversations? And oftentimes questions like that will just break the ice and will make the whole conversation go a lot smoother.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Miguel. All right, so I just want to remind everyone that we want to make this conversation very friendly. So if you have any more questions, you can raise your hand, or you can send the question via the question chat on your control panel. So Fernando, while we wait for more questions, I remember the last time that we met, you telling me that in some cases you were trying to acquire businesses from big companies that are trying to build trying to get contracts for construction in the DFW area. So can you give us a specific example on one of those occasions where you needed most your soft skills rather than your technical skills?
Yeah. So I guess the soft skills. So I guess let me back up. Oftentimes, you won't be able to have a conversation on the technical skills or hard skills until you can prove yourself with your soft skills. And by that, what I mean by that is, you know, I've attended events such as ASCE, which is the American Society of Civil Engineers. Let's say I attend an event like that, and there happens to be a contractor there, or there happens to be a potential client that that's attending this event. And unless I'm able to go to them, have a conversation, open up the discussion about where I work, what I do, what my company brings to the table, it's very difficult for them to feel comfortable investing. I want to say that word, investing the time to have a discussion about the potential partnership or potential project slash contract that I can get with them. So I think the soft skills come into play when you're just trying to, you're trying to build that relationship and trying to build that trust to where the potential client can share their project with you. And again, maybe potentially take that to the next level and have that partnership where you are a customer client relationship.
Right, sounds like a good advice. So, for instance, what is your first line whenever you want to meet someone that you haven't met before? What is your introduction line, for instance?
Well, I would say it depends on the scenario or depends on the situation, but typically, I will go up to them, introduce myself. How's it going? My name is Fernando Ceballos. I currently work for a company called Dawson Engineers. I'd love to be able to have a discussion with you with some of the projects that you guys are currently working on, and I want to get a better feel for what are the things that you guys are foreseeable projects that you guys are working on in the future, and I'd love to have that discussion with you. Something along those lines to where they know that I have a background in civil engineering, the company that I work for, and that I'm interested in knowing, how I can potentially bring value to them.
And you mentioned that that you didn't have these skills a couple of years ago, that you needed to acquire these skills through practicing. So and you recommended going to young to kids to start talking to them to feel comfortable in that environment, and just keep increasing your audience to higher levels. So what kind of specific activities, or what can you recommend to our members? They can search for these kids to go and teach or engage with these particular activities.
Yeah. So I guess there's different ways. If you're already part of a SHPE chapter, or maybe even ASCE or ASME, which are other technical organizations, again they're more on the nonprofit side. A lot of them focus on doing STEM outreach or just community outreach. Now, if for whatever reason you aren't in part of those organizations, you can always contact the school directly, contact the science department, a math department. Some schools have engineering departments, but even tap into your own personal network. Think about people that that are teachers, people who are counselors, and maybe they can open up potential opportunities for you to go and speak. And then when it comes to the content that you would be talking about, depending on the subject subject of the class you're talking to, you may cater your presentation, your content differently. But if you're trying to be talking to elementary kids, know your audience. Know that you want to express to them what you do in your career more on their level. Talk about, me, for example, when I give a presentation to elementary kids, I focus on the fact that, I play Minecraft, which is a Microsoft game that's focused on building different things. I play Minecraft for a living. And to them, it's easier for them to understand that. But if you're maybe a mechanical engineer, you can say that, you're Iron Man, right? You take a role as Iron Man because you're building robots and different machinery. So again, knowing your audience, but to be able to find those opportunities, again, partner up with your organizations or just contact your network directly.
That's true. You need to know your audience so you can communicate better. All right.
That's correct.
So let me open the mic for Jake Burgess. All right, Jake.
You guys can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for the presentation, Fernando. I thought it was a huge amount of value in a short amount of time, so I appreciate that. I really like the slide you have on business development, and I have a question about sponsorships, finding sponsorships for your SHIP chapter or whatever you're looking for. I'm wondering if you have any tips based on your experience on inquiring about sponsorships, building relationships for them, or whatever core takeaways you have in the past of seeking sponsorships.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jake. So I think there's two different types of potential sponsors. There's the sponsors of people. So let's take companies, for example. There's a company who has an employee that you can work with that employee and understand what are some of the things that they're currently working on and things that they're trying to focus on, and you can leverage your sponsorship packet to bring value to their new initiatives. So for example, let's take on Microsoft, for example. They're trying to do new recruiting efforts and trying to bring in a more diverse employees, right? So what you could offer the opportunity to Microsoft through your sponsorship packet is, hey, we'd love for you to be able to partner with us, and all we're asking for you to do is maybe provide some food, provide some flyers, maybe find a way to provide a service for the community outreach that we do, and in return, we'd love to be able to give you the exposure to talk to our members, whether that be at a webinar, at a workshop, or Microsoft employees coming to a meeting and trying to pitch the life of an employee in Microsoft. But it's kind of twofold, because Microsoft is giving them, SHIP is giving Microsoft the opportunity for the exposure, and on top of that, we are giving the Microsoft employees a platform to work on their public speaking, to work on their professional development, all the different things that we talked about earlier. Those are things that the Microsoft employees will be able to work on themselves while pitching that to the chapter. Now, on the other side is companies that you don't know of, or companies that you don't know anyone working for them. That's where the little bit of the research comes into play, and understanding what are some of the things that the company focuses on, and what are some of the initiatives that they're trying to work on. And again, it might be catered to bringing in new employees, but maybe they're just trying to get their name out there, right? So what can you do as an organization to help them get their name out there? Maybe you can host a community event with other organizations to be able to partner up and get the name out there. So those are a little bit tips and tricks that I think we've utilized in the past in our organization and SHIP that have been pretty fruitful, because again, it's finding those win-win scenarios for everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really good. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. All right, Fernando, we have another question from Andres Marroquin. He sent in a question via chat, and he wants to know what are some soft skills by name that are essential when talking with professionals, and how we can practice these skills.
I mean, I want to keep going back to public speaking, right? I think it's important to feel comfortable with yourself and know what you're trying to deliver. Are you talking to a professional? Are you trying to convince them? Are you trying to educate them? Are you trying to motivate them? What are the things that you're trying to do with them? But as a soft skill, the thing that you need to develop is just your self-esteem, is knowing let me back up. I think oftentimes students have a difficult time talking to professionals because they don't think that they're good enough, or they don't think that they bring a valuable package to the table. So one thing that a student can do to be more comfortable talking to a professional is first really understand to their core who they are as an individual, and also know their resume, at the back of their hand. And being able to do so, you will be able to, excuse me, you will be able to develop a self-awareness that will shine when you're talking to a professional. And I think that self-awareness is critical because oftentimes when a student is having a discussion with a professional, they're typically questioning themselves and they really don't know whether or not what they're trying to convey to the professional is really how they feel. So as a soft skill, I would say is, the public speaking, but also build your self-esteem and build your self-awareness. Really get to understand what you bring to the table and have confidence in what you're bringing to the table. Know that, you are who you are. And if people want to be part of that, then they are. And if they're not, they're not. But again, I think the confidence and the self-awareness are critical to being more comfortable with yourself.
All right. I hope we answer Andres' questions. And please, guys, if you have any more questions, we have the chat open, or you can raise your hand on your control panel. So, Fernando, now that you're touching these specific soft skills, I want to ask this. Where did you learn this? Did you have any particular set of books? You saw some videos? Did you have a mentor? How did you get to this point where you can start teaching these soft skills?
So I guess the answer is all of the above. But I really like the fact that you mentioned a mentor. I think in finding who you really are, you have to surround yourself with people who have the skills that you're trying to build. But I think the most important one is finding a mentor, and being able to find a mentor. This is going to be an individual that's going to help you, head in the direction that you're trying to get to. And if you're headed in the wrong direction, the mentor is going to be able to step in and say, hey, I think you might want to pivot or adjust the direction you're taking with your life. And again, we're going back to the soft skills. A mentor is going to be able to help you develop those. Now, going back to the questions earlier about how do you get more comfortable talking to professionals. Well, if you're a student, get a mentor that's a professional. Those conversations you're going to have with them are going to be the same conversations you're going to have with other professionals. So again, this is an opportunity for you to get the exposure, get the practice, and get the perspective that you're looking for. If you're a professional and you want to become a project manager, get yourself a mentor as a project manager and, pick their brains. Maybe find yourself two mentors, two project manager mentors, one that's very focused on the soft skills and one who has a very strong technical background. Those two mentors will be able to help you develop those skills. But, the route that I took was, again, all of the above. I do a lot of self-help books, a lot of personal development books, professional development books, and I also watch a lot of videos on YouTube about personality styles, about how to be more motivating, storytelling. These are all skills that if you don't see someone else do them, it's very difficult for you to embody those skills.
Yeah, that's a perfect advice. Just any particular book that pops to your mind?
So I guess the cheat sheet or the book that does it all, I would say is Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's good.
Yeah, it has, believe it has over 100 interviews. And these are, people from all over the world, people from different areas, different disciplines. They're key nuggets and I think that's a good book to fall back on.
All right, yeah, those are very, very nice references. We have more questions in the chat. This question is from Susana Campos. She says, "Hi, Fernando. I know back at the national conference during our regional meeting, you asked us how many of you feel you're not Hispanic enough for not working Spanish, for not knowing Spanish, I'm sorry. And she says, have you ever experienced a challenging scenario, having a language barrier between yourself and your clients or colleagues? How did you or how would you address this situation?"
I would say yes. Thank you for the question, Susie. I would say yes. I've experienced that. There's been times where, maybe not just in my office, but being in an industry that's heavily, being a civil engineer and being in a construction industry, you oftentimes find yourself in situations where there's a lot of racial remarks. Typically, when you think of the Hispanic population, there's a few roles that a Hispanic will fall into. One of them being a construction worker or just a laborer. So there'll be times where I overhear jokes being made about a Hispanic or a Mexican, being a construction worker. Now I won't go into detail, but you guys can understand like what I'm trying to say here.
Yep.
And there's things where you just have to not necessarily know your place, but be able to pick your battles. You want to have open discussions with people and just be very candid with them and say, I heard you making a joke and I really didn't appreciate it. It'd be great for you to be more understanding that things like that are patronizing, and I would prefer that you don't have those conversations. But if you do continue to make those jokes, I'd love to be able to have a discussion with you for you to understand like what you're really doing, not just to me, but to my community. In conversations like that, you have to know, again, you have to pick your battles. Oftentimes, or the majority of the time, you'll have a discussion like that behind closed doors with the person that made the joke. But there'll be other times where you have to, put your foot down, and in a team environment or in a group environment, make the remark and say, hey, I don't appreciate you making those type of jokes. I would appreciate if you can just stop, right? But in regards to what you can do as an individual to help yourself get through that, I think it goes back to the self-awareness and the confidence. You have to be confident enough to know that the things that you're saying are going to make an impact. And you want to make sure that, the words you say them with confidence so that people can understand, the issue or the problem that we're creating. But above all of that is you want to create an environment around you where people know where you're coming from and that they're able to advocate for you. The last thing you want is to create a network within your company or organization or even school environment of like-minded people that all look like you. Because then you'll have the same people advocating for themselves, and you'll have the flip side of people who don't look like you, who don't really know how to relate. So the best, tip that I can say is find people who don't look like you, who are willing to advocate for your problems, and together you can fix those issues.
All right, thank you. I think that's a valuable advice. And I think probably one of these situations are the ones where your technical skills are probably not the best skills to solve the problem rather than the soft skills.
Correct.
So we have a couple of comments. Let me see. So Miguel Angeles recommends Principles by Ray Dalio. He says this is a great book and it teaches principles at any individual or organization. And so we are getting towards the end of the webinar, Fernando. While we wait for more questions, let me ask you this. What are the specific benefits, technical or soft, that SHPE has brought to you? What are the advantages, benefits that you can tell from your own experience you can get from joining SHPE?
So, when people ask me the question, what does SHPE mean to me? I typically have the answer of a platform. SHPE has given me the platform to practice. SHPE has given me the platform to develop my skills, to create my network. I think the biggest benefit of being part of SHPE is just, the familia, but again, the platform that it's given me. Oftentimes, people join SHPE with different reasons of wanting to join. Some of them want to volunteer. Some of them want to work on being better managers. Some of them want to be more motivating or work on public speaking. SHPE can do all of those things. When people ask me, why should I join the organization, my typical response is what are you looking for? Because SHPE can be anything that you need it to be. If you don't want to volunteer and you're just looking for friends, SHPE can do that for you, right? Focus on just attending social events or networking events. If you want to be a better public speaker and give back to the community, because potentially you want to maybe one day run for office or get involved in a political realm. You can build those key relationships through your involvement of this organization. And again, the list can go on and on and on. But I think the biggest takeaway from being a member of SHPE is just the platform that it's given me, because it's allowed me to do whatever it is that I want to do while helping other people.
I think probably also the environment that the SHPE can offer. I mean, the concept of familia is precisely that we can offer this friendly familia environment that you won't probably find in any other organization. All right, we are heading towards the end. Is there any more questions? I think this is the time to take them. If you want to send your question through the chat or raise your hand so we can open the microphone. And so at the end, Fernando, where we can find you, how people can get in touch with you.
So I'm on all the social platforms. The best way for you guys to contact me is maybe through email. My email is fdoceballos@gmail.com. Or again, anywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I also have a website. If you guys can go to that, fdoceballos.com, and you'll be able to find links to all of my social platforms and email address through my website.
And if you're looking for a mentor, this is where you can find him, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. No more questions. Thanks everyone for attending this webinar. Fernando, thank you so much. This is very, very valuable for all the listeners, for all the people that want to know how to advance in their careers. I think this is the very, very first thing that they need to look at. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. We'll keep bringing these presentations to you. Please stay tuned to our website. And I just want to remind you that we have an in-person seminar event next week at SMU. If you want to find more details, I'm going to post the link where you can find it on our website. The event is free. Please just register so we know how many people we're expecting. And thank you so much for coming. We'll keep bringing these presentations to you, and we'll send this information through our newsletter. You can find more information on Twitter, directly on the website. And I want to thank SHPE DFW, or our board of directors, and special Fernando that is helping us with this presentation, webinar number 3. We're starting, but we want to make this webinar series very, very, very high, very big. All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming, and talk to you the next webinar.